The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem. All right, joining us now to discuss the crypto markets is Joe Orsini, Vice President of Research at Investment Advisor, Eaglebrook Advisors. Welcome to the show, Joe. So, I see the crypto markets are up. The U.S. futures are also looking good. And we've got this U.S. GDP report out, and we see that U.S. GDP rose at an annual rate of 2.6% in the third quarter of this year, in contrast to a decline that we've seen in the first 2 quarters of the year. And so, this must be what's propping up the markets. How long do you think this will last?
Sure. So thanks for having me on again. And so, of course, we've seen a nice little rally out of Bitcoin, Ether, and digital assets in recent weeks, and it's been another strong sign of, again, their resiliency throughout this environment. And so, when you kind of consider that Bitcoin outperformed equities currently in Q4, it outperformed Q1, and outperformed in Q3, it does again highlight its resilience through this market environment. Now, it also emphasizes how significant the idiosyncratic and the event-driven risk that occurred in Q2, right? And so where would Bitcoin and digital assets be without that? We won't know. But what it does do is illustrate that, of course, time moves on, market progresses, and really the conversation is now changing to maybe the positives instead of the kind of negatives that occurred in May and June. And so, of course, we've had a GDP report this morning that illustrates that, again, the environment may not be as bad as is feared. And of course, the market and the macro uncertainty has been a headwind to digital assets. So any sign that some of the macro overhangs, such as, the concerns over a hard landing or the continued stampede higher in the dollar and rates, any signs that those are starting to alleviate has led to a rally across risk assets. And of course, Bitcoin and Ether and digital assets, facing some positivity around that.
Yeah, how does this rebounding U.S. GDP report, how do you think it'll affect the Fed decision, which is right around the corner in November, whether or not they'll raise interest rate hikes?
Yeah, so, market pricing after the GDP report has stayed the same, and you've really had an interesting dynamic with the Fed as of recent, and it's likely not to change the 75 basis points that's likely to come in the next meeting, but you've had a touch of dovishness in the last week, right? And you had that Wall Street Journal article that highlighted that the Fed, will consider kind of their pace of tightening, and so just one small glimpse of dovishness has led to a rally, and I think that's really what's important. Now, the market continues to price in a peak federal funds rate of 4.9% around March or May of next year. And so now that we're in November, or entering November, it's getting closer and closer. And so that has reassured investors as well. And so ultimately, a hard landing or soft landing, the economy has been strong. And I think it's time that, we've been now about a year into this bear market and likely kind of see strong seasonals in Q4. And really, again, the excitement around the positivity to come rather than the negative in the past. I think that certainly is a tailwind that we have in the near term.
Joe, do you have any thoughts on Meta? They've been taking kind of a beating lately. And the reason why it's relevant to crypto is because, their name is literally Meta, which is, they're making a big bet on the Metaverse, which is a huge part of the crypto economy. What does this mean? Do you think this is like a crisis of faith in Metaverse or just a crisis of faith in Meta, the company?
Yeah, I think it's company specific. I think overall what it does illustrate is that, you have the investor base that believes Bitcoin and Ether are volatile. And then you kind of consider some of these, tech names and these mid cap growth and large cap growth names that are down just as much or even if not more than Bitcoin and Ether. So I think it just illustrates that, Bitcoin, it's down. It's certainly not out. And in terms of Meta and Metaverse, it's a long road. And the Metaverse is in incredibly early innings. You'd probably say it's in the first inning of really what it can be. And so if Meta, the company, wants to enter that space, they've had a lot of success in the past. Of course, you do have some headwinds, with kind of the use of Facebook and all of that, but those are kind of company specific. And so, don't really consider it being a real headwind to Metaverse in general. The world games, you have 33% of the world that is utilizing gaming applications. And so when you kind of consider that and kind of consider how digital the world is getting and the benefit of, real economies within these metaverses and these play to earn games, and, that is just beginning. And I think that's what's exciting.